Mobility in 2019 is a tough one. In rural areas, people are somehow forced to use their own cars because public transport is giving them a hard time. In a lot of cases, there is no public transport available, and if, it's not very satisfying. On the other hand, we see, sorry, I'm lost here. On the other hand, we see cities with problems that are somehow comparable. What's happening there? We see a lot of congestion in cities. We see a lot of pollution. We see people looking for parking spots 65 hours a year. We see people that are using their car typically on their own, and the public transport that is somehow neglected. Good news, mobility of the future will change. What's going to happen? We already see a lot of shared services. Services like Yoki that collect people that are willing to go in one direction, drop them off at the right spots. We see a lot of low mobility priced providers. These are the BlaBlaCars, these are the Flixbus companies, and with all the new technology, prices of mobility will decrease. We also see digital travel. Companies like Google are working on apps, on technologies that give the customer the opportunity to tell them where they want to go, and Google spits out the complete way, but also the possible connections, and in the near future will also give you one ticket instead of 5. And what we've heard before, autonomous vehicles. Big thing, everybody is waiting for it. As you can assume, especially for public transport, that would be a real lifesaver, because in a lot of cases public transport is not economically possible, especially on the countryside, and we assume that by having autonomous vehicles we can decrease the operational cost by roughly 40%. So, at the moment we see two mobility groups. These are the groups of the motorized individual transport and the public transport people. Meaning we have roughly 85% of people who are using their own vehicles to go from A to B, and we have roughly 50% of the rest of the people that are using public transport to satisfy their mobility needs. However, due to new technologies, we will soon see the individual public transport on the rise. Meaning, with new transport modes, you will have the opportunity, the chance to fulfill your individual mobility needs with public transport services. The new public transport services will, however, be on demand. Meaning, we will see autonomous vehicles that will be sustainable, water hybrid or electrified vehicles. They will always be individual. It's about tailor-made mobility, and they will always be on demand. What do we mean with on demand? It means that the vehicle will come at the time you want it to happen, at the place you want it to happen, 24 hours a day. And we differ between ride-sharing and ride-hailing. At Yoki, we obviously point at ride-sharing, meaning we try to collect people that are going at the same direction and put them in a vehicle, have a shared ride, have a decreased price, obviously. Ride-hailing, however, means you have a chauffeur, a driver, a taxi-like service that is bringing you from A to B. And it's typically not integrated into public transport. So, ride-hailing companies in the US, for example, are causing big problems. Because they are not integrated in the existing ecosystems, they cause additional pollution caused by people who are former public transport users. For example, in Manhattan, we have roughly 1 billion additional kilometers on the roads produced by former public transport customers. And this is obviously causing additional pollution, additional congestion, and helps the city not at all. So at Yoki, we believe that you have to do a smart integration of an on-demand system in order to create real value to a public transport ecosystem. Let me show you what we did in Hamburg. You see, this is the economical and ecological efficiency of the public transport line system. If you take a look at it, you see that in the morning hours and in the evening hours, of course, it's highly efficient because people go in the office or to school, and in the afternoon, they're coming back. If you add an on-demand system that is not integrated into this system, in the public transport system, you see that the overall efficiency is even decreasing because these two systems are cannibalizing each other. That's why at EOKI, we believe that only an integrated on-demand system, integrated into the public transport system, makes sense. And this is what we are seeing in Hamburg. If you integrate smartly the new on-demand service, you will drastically increase the efficiency of the old public transport system. And by doing that, if we would do it across whole Hamburg, we would have 61 kilometers less driven kilometers, and roughly 97% of the vehicles could be off the road. So what is EOKI doing? EOKI is a corporate startup of Deutsche Bahn, sitting in Hamburg, roughly 100 employees, with two major branches. We have a world-class mobility analytics team that is able to make a deep dive in the public transport ecosystem of a city and finding out where are the weak spots, where is an efficient and really good, satisfying transport mode, and where are the problems, where have people a big problem to go from A to B in the night hours, during the day, whatever. Also, we have the on-demand platform. We are selling to cities and to companies, public transport providers, enabling them to operate on-demand services on their own. And of course, we have a team in the background that helps our customers to ramp up these services. As a Deutsche Bahn startup, obviously we have public transport in our DNA. And the big goal of EOKI is to really support public transport, make it more attractive, and make it possible to have one seamless ride. So let me tell you what our folks from the mobility analytics department did in Hamburg. Because we're operating a transport there with 25 shuttles, 24 hours around the clock, and it's highly successful. They took a deep dive in an area trying to understand when is there attractive public transport, when is it most sensible to combine public transport with on-demand shuttles, that would be the green one, and when does it make no sense to operate at all, because you do not have any public transport you can mix the on-demand shuttles with. That would be the blue one. So we analyzed the areas of Hamburg on a 24/7 basis, and what you see here is all the movements and the request of mobility by statistical data, by telecommunication data, and a lot of calculation, obviously. And the greener it gets, the higher is the likelihood for a successful integrated on-demand shuttle. And this, of course, brought us to this assumption. These are three areas where integrated public transport makes the most sense. And this is exactly where we installed our pilots. As I said, we're with 25 vehicles in Hamburg, highly successful, and it's a great pleasure to see that it's really accepted by the people. Because what we do is collect people who live too far away from public transport, bring them to the nearest public transport station, and it's integrated in public transport. Meaning, if you have a monthly card, you can use it for free, and that gives a lot of people the opportunity to let their car in the garage and jump into the EOKI shuttle and have a seamless connection to downtown Hamburg, for example. Yeah, and I'm closing with the last chart. As you can see, if we want to decrease vehicles, if we want to decrease emissions, we really have to think about shared and multimodal and autonomous and obviously integrated into public transport. Thanks a lot.